This episode of The Edge is brought to you by Audible.com, offering more than 180,000 titles for smartphone, tablet, and desktop. To get a free audiobook of your choice and help Trek.fm at the same time, visit audibletrial.com/Trek.fm. And also by Enterprise in Space, an international program of the nonprofit National Space Society. Find out how you can help science and education and become a virtual crew member aboard the NSS Enterprise Orbiter by visiting enterpriseinspace.org. And if you want to join the conversation and share your thoughts on this episode, join the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. Just type BABEL into the Facebook search field. We look forward to seeing you there.
Hi, I'm Rekha Sharma, and I played Landry on Star Trek Discovery. You are listening to The Edge on Trek.fm.
What have you done out there on the edge of Federation space?
Welcome to The Edge, Trek.fm's dedicated podcast to Star Trek Discovery. I'm your host, Patrick Devlin, and with me, as always, is my good friend Amy Nelson. Amy, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Last week I was out, and so you and Brandon had a great discussion.
No, last week I was out, and you and Chris had a great discussion.
Nuh-uh, was it?
Yeah, you were out the week before.
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
you
yes.
and Christopher Littlefield did last week's episode.
That's right. Well, it's been a while since I've seen you, so.
Yes. Well, that's this whole time rift thing going on.
It
here.
is.
So now we don't even know what week we're in anymore.
That's the truth.
Okay.
All right.
But it is good to be podcasting with you again because we haven't seen each other in 2 weeks.
That's true.
First you went away and then I had the explosion in my house. So
yeah. Oh my god.
Everything's fine now here, but oh boy, it was not fun.
Was it a future probe that blew up?
Think so.
Yeah.
I definitely think I was attacked by a future water problem I had in the current time, 10 minutes later or tomorrow. Today, yesterday.
Yes.
Or something. So anyway, talking about my house problems is not what we're here to do this week. We are here to talk about the newest episode of Star Trek Discovery, Light and Shadows. So what were your initial thoughts on this episode?
Okay, so I watched it and I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. It was so exciting. The stories seemed to just blend very well together. I liked the whole setup of mystery, and how Burnham was like saying, oh, well, things come in three, birth, life, and death, and past, present, and future. And so that really set up so well the whole idea of a time rift. And so I thought it was great. I really, really enjoyed it.
I thought it was a good episode. After watching it, I went on Facebook, and I try not to do that, but I did go on Facebook and saw what other people are commenting, and everyone was talking about how this is like the greatest episode they've ever seen. And I thought, all right, I got to watch it again because I must have missed something. I thought it was really good. I don't know about greatest episode of Star Trek I've ever seen, though. And but we'll get into it. I did enjoy it a lot. I probably a 4 out of 5 if I had to guess. Yeah,
I saw a lot of people saying this is the best, and I was sort of like you. I'm like, yeah, it's good. I don't know. I enjoyed some previous ones a little bit better than this one. So
yeah, me too.
But it was good. It was good.
I liked last week's better than this one, actually, and I'm so upset I missed talking about it because I loved last week's episode.
Yeah,
but literally a week ago, I had a better episode, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
But whatever. I mean, everyone teach their own. And as long as we're watching Star Trek, then there's more Star Trek to come. So,
yeah,
that's a good thing. I just didn't see it as the best ever. But in watching it again, I picked up other things that I liked about the episode. Still not the greatest ever. But I picked up different things each time I watched. And I watched it. I had it on 4 times. I really watched it 3. The other time was just kind of on in the background, and I didn't really pay much attention to what they were saying, so that shouldn't even count.
Yeah, so now I'm getting sort of in this routine. I'll watch it Thursday, and I Friday, I was able to join the live chat and stuff. So I did that. And then I'm reading all the comments for postcards, and I recorded postcards. So I'm really getting a lot of, what other people are thinking, and then watch it again today, Sunday, as of this recording. So I feel like I'm getting a lot of different opinions and perspectives, and I'm liking how this is going. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying how the series is turning out. I think, actually, before we move on to the actual first topic, but I think one of the reasons why people think this is the greatest or feel that way is because you finally get Spock, and people have been dying for that for weeks now. Mm-hmm. So I guess I could see that pushing it over the edge if that's something I was really caring about, but I didn't really care that we hadn't seen him yet. I knew we were going to see him eventually, so all right, if they want to dangle that carrot out there for the rest of the season, then they dangle the carrot. I mean, it didn't bother me.
Yeah, I think now the carrot is finding out the Red Angel, because that's what I'm interested in, and the red anomalies. That's what I'm really interested in. Yeah,
because clearly the last carrot is broken. So Spock is definitely broken at this point.
Yes.
So, and yeah, now it's going to be, although I have a theory on that I talked with Brandon about, and we'll get into it a little later, but on who the Red Angel is, that may differ from other people.
Mm-hmm. So okay.
But anyway, let's jump into the episode itself. And first, I'd like to talk about the relationship between Pike and Tyler through this episode, because I thought that was a great storyline. What were your thoughts on their relationship through this episode?
I really liked how Pike does not trust Tyler, like one little bit. And we knew that when Tyler came on initially, and it's still there. He's still harboring, and he says it right there as they're walking. It's like, you killed one of my crew members. And, and I love how he says, like, one of my crew members, because, that happened season 1. That's when Lorca was in control. Pike doesn't even know Culber, right?
Well, they met when Culber came back.
Well, yeah,
right?
But I mean, outside of that, but I still love that Pike's, that's one of my guys, and you killed him.
Yes.
And I still don't know, is Vogt going to reappear? And so the distrust is right there, and it's still continuing. I love that.
The best part of that scene to me was when he's like, well, as far as Volk, I can't get rid of him. Mm-hmm. And Pike's like, yeah, I know the feeling. Meaning, I can't get rid of you. But, so that was a great scene. And well within Pike's character to say exactly that. I do like the fact that he doesn't trust Tyler, but I like it more for the fact that he did kill someone. That's the point of contention.
Exactly.
Because me and Brandon brought that up last year, and we were looked at like we were crazy. But Pike believes you shouldn't be on this ship. You're a criminal. It doesn't matter that your other half did it. It was still your body that was there. Yeah. And that's what Pike thinks.
Yeah.
I mean, that changes through this episode, but he definitely thinks that at this moment. Another scene that I really liked with those two was when he's like, you owe me an explanation, and he flips the badge at him, and he's like, yeah, the seat outranks the badge. And then when he gets up, he flips it back to him.
Yeah. That is wonderful. And yeah, the chair outranks the badge. Great banter again between them. And, we see that come back a little bit later. And so it comes back where he's like, well, maybe you were right. And he's like, well, you were the best man for the job, type of thing. So giving him credit where credit is due at the end. How did you feel that went over?
Okay, so we're jumping way ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I liked it. I liked that scene a lot, because even if you have a distrust for someone, you can still acknowledge what they did in the moment. He did save Pike's life. Tyler did save Pike's life, and Pike was somewhat trying to make up for not being around because he was on his 5-year mission. But at the same time, Pike was the right guy for the job, too. So it wasn't completely out of control that he did it, even if his motives weren't the right motives to be the one carrying out the mission. Yeah,
so I'm almost a little bored of Pike trying to redeem himself because he did miss the war and was away on his 5-year mission. Because we already learned that, way back season 1, season 2, where he admitted, I missed out on the war. And we know that he has feelings. And now we're season 7 and he's still having this regret. And I'm like, okay, dude, get over it. Maybe I'm a little insensitive to that. And maybe I don't understand how deep his regret goes.
I think so. I wouldn't say I'm bored with it. I think I'm okay with it, actually. And, because, we saw it in the beginning, he admits that he was gone, but we don't really see him come to terms with it. We see Tyler poke him about it in episode 5, was it, I think?
Yeah.
Where he goes, you don't know what this war took on people who actually fought it. Like, that was a really bad jab. And we never saw a resolution to that. So this is kind of the resolution of that in my mind. So I'm okay with still dealing with it. And I think, honestly, if a lot of people you knew, because he had to have known a lot of the people, right?
Yeah.
That had died in the war. If a lot of people you knew died, you'd still have survivor's guilt for a while. It wouldn't be gone that quickly, in my opinion.
Okay.
So I think he has a form of that, but it's not to the point where he can't do his job, but it is affecting his job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it may be overcompensating, but then yet not, because he was the best man for the job to pilot and go into the time rift. So,
right. Well, this time it worked out. That doesn't mean it always works out. So it might come around to blow up in his face once, and that would be an interesting episode as well if it did blow up in his face.
So what did you think about when Pike threatens to throw him in the brig, and then he can think about his guilt? And, I sort of was like, you don't make threats unless you're going to follow through. And here you are, insubordination and not following a direct order. And I was just like, oh, it was very similar, because in my early days as a teacher, I would tend to make threats that I wasn't going to follow through to try and get the kids to behave. And I've learned you can't do that. And I sort of felt like, oh, he's overreacting just to the situation. What did you think about that?
I love the scene.
Okay.
I think it's the exact right thing to say at the right moment. I think had Tyler not changed his tune and burned the plasma, he'd be in the brig at the end of that episode. Mm-hmm. In fact, I was kind of expecting it to go that direction and not have Tyler just do what he was told. But that's how a captain has to act if you're not going to listen in the middle of a life and death situation. Yeah. I outrank you. Do what I say. It was not, and I love that he didn't. A lot of times in Star Trek, we see the captain explain the reason. He didn't explain anything. He didn't say, "I'm doing it so that they can see us." Mm-hmm. He just said, "Do it now." I said, "Do it now." And Tyler said, "Well, you're doing this to prove your that you're to fix your guilt." And he's like, and that's when he said, "Just do it." Yeah. End of story. If you don't, you can think about guilt in the break. And I loved it, because I think that's exactly how he should have reacted. I can explain to you later what my motives were. Mm-hmm. We can talk about it later. But right now, you have to do what I say when I say, or it might be too late. Right.
It's definitely a life or death situation, and you do need an officer who's going to follow your commands.
Right. And it's only the two of them. So it's not even like he could do anything about him at the moment. Mm-hmm. He can't replace him in the moment because there's no one else there to do it. He would just have to reach over and burn the plasma. Mm-hmm. But so I kind of expected it to go that way. Especially when we saw the cutscene that Tyler is getting shot by Pike. Yeah. In the future, past, whenever it happened. And it turns out the future. But we didn't know that at the moment. We didn't know if that was a different timeline altogether or whatever. Yeah. But we see that. And then this happens. You're like, oh, man, they're going to shoot. He's going to shoot him.
I know. I was so worried about that.
When they finally revealed what really happened, that was a great scene, too. Yeah. Because even Pike was like, oh, and he kind of like turns the gun and looks like, he goes, this is what it is. Mm-hmm. Don't move. And he shoots the thing from the Matrix.
The probe, yeah.
Yeah, the best way to explain it is the thing from the Matrix.
So that probe was the one launched from Discovery or the one launched from the shuttlecraft?
I assumed it was the one launched from the shuttlecraft.
Because they were in the time rift already.
Right, okay. And it travels 500 years into the future by going through the aperture, I guess, or whatever. Then it gets sent back 500 years to attack them as like a squid.
Yeah. And so I was trying to, because they assume now that this obviously was an attack and that it has malicious intent. And so then that sort of turns them that the Red Angel might be malicious as well.
Okay. So I was going to get into this later in our nitpick section at the end, but this is one of my nitpicks on this show in general. It assumes too much. So, in the beginning, we hear that it's someone from the future because Saru saw it. Okay. Just because you've never seen the tech doesn't mean it's from the future. There's plenty of universe that you haven't seen yet. So it might not be from the future. Just adding the word, so we assume it's from the future, makes a lot more sense than the show just telling us outright it's from the future. That's number one.
Well, but now they know the probe was from the future.
The probe was, but they didn't know the Red Angel was.
Right.
Just because Saru saw the Red Angel and it looked futuristic doesn't mean it's futuristic. If we took some of the stuff we use here in America and brought it into a jungle that's away from cities in, some rural country, they would think we were from the future too, because they've never seen anything like it.
Right. But now we know it is from the future.
Well, we don't know the Red Angel is.
Right. So that's what I'm saying.
They
Do you
told
think that
us.
Connection is
right, so
valid?
but that's my problem. It's automatically assuming that they've said it's from the future, so it is. Do you get what I'm saying?
You're saying that the Red Angel might not be from the future.
I'm saying that the information they gave us up to this point does not tell you that it's definitely from the future. Although we now know they're going to write it that way.
Okay.
They never gave us enough information to make the leap. We could have guessed it's from the future.
Yeah.
We could have guessed with fair certainty that it was from the future too. But they didn't give us anything that categorically gave us the information that says it's from the future. It just assumes that and says it.
Well, and I think that's in part because that's how stories are told. Because if you think back, I think it was 3 episodes ago and then 2 episodes ago, they hinted at, I think there was only one line in each of those that was talking about the red anomalies and that there was a space-time rift or, a space-time anomaly. So it's like they hinted. I don't think that they made that assumption. I think we as fans may have, and maybe that's what's bothering you. But I think that the assumption has always been that, it's benevolent. It's trying to help us. Look, it's sending us to this planet, New Eden. And then, we're saving, going to the Baul and the Kelpians. Like, up until now, they've sort of assumed that it's benevolent. And now this is the first time that I think Pike, for sure, is questioning that assumption. And so I think they're showing us both assumptions here at the same time, which I really like and appreciate because they're looking at it and not going with one assumption.
Oh, no, I completely disagree. I don't like it at all. I don't like the way they're telling it. First off, okay, so they gave us those, and yes, we as fans assumed it was from the future. Then they said in this episode, well, Saru saw it, or was it last episode? Might have been last episode. Saru saw it, it's from the future. Oh, okay. Yeah. It could be from somewhere else in the galaxy, but whatever. All right. Now, this thing comes back, and Pike assumes to start believing Section 31's version because this thing attacked.
Because the
How do we know this thing is... How do we know it's even remotely connected to the Red Angel?
Right. So that's what I'm saying. It's like he's not continuing on his single-minded train of thought that, well, because the red anomalies in the past sort of led us to good things, right? So I'm saying that he's being very open-minded about it. I'm not saying that he's assuming that it's completely malicious. So I'm appreciating that all of them are being open-minded about it. Can you be open-minded about it?
No, I need more information. In fact, I think I am open-minded about it. I don't know what it is.
Okay.
I don't know that this thing has anything to do with the Red Angel either. I'm just not going to change my assumptions of what information I've seen from the Red Angel to this point because some other thing from the future came back and attacked me.
Okay.
I don't necessarily agree that the Red Angel is only doing things for good, but that has nothing to do with this probe. That's my point.
Yeah, I think the only connection was that because the coordinates that they set the shuttle to was the same coordinates that led them to the Kaminar and then disappeared. So that red anomaly was there They went there, and now we got this time rift, space, time continuum thing, and that's where the probe came from. So that is the only connection between, and again, that's assuming that the red angel and the red anomalies are the same.
Correct. And I think they're going to be. I mean, that seems like that's obvious that that's the way they're writing it anyway. And even if you wanted to assume, okay, so now if we wanted to take the assumption that the red angel's from the future because of this time anomaly, that I can understand. Like I said, my only problem is my probe attacking me that went 500 years in the future and 500 years back, it doesn't affect what I think of the red angel, in my opinion.
Okay.
Because anything could have grabbed it 500 years from now and sent it back.
Okay. It just happens to be the same coordinates. That's my point.
Yeah, because that's where the time rift was, though.
And the red anomaly.
Yes, but that doesn't... My point is, on the other side of that 500 years, we don't know what's there.
Right, except that there was a red anomaly there. That's all. So, yes, they're trying to connect A, B, C to D, and you're not buying it. I get it.
Correct. A, B, and C, I'm good with. D is my problem.
Right.
I just don't agree that because all the other ones are connected, that this probe has to be connected to them.
That probe, I think we can say, is connected to the red anomaly.
No.
Yes.
No. Not in... Coincidentally, we sent a probe into something that we found a red anomaly at.
Yes.
Okay, so that's the only connection, though. We did it. We caused this problem. We caused the connection.
No. The red anomaly appeared and then disappeared.
Right. Yes, and we went to it.
Right. So...
And then there was a time rift.
Right. So we can say that the red anomaly is connected to the time rift, and the probe, because we sent it there, is connected to the time rift, which is connected to the red anomaly. If A equals B, B equals C, then A equals C. It's the law of transitivity. I'm trusting the math. So those three things connect. Yeah, but I get that.
That's not how this math would work.
Yes, it does. I'm going to draw you a diagram.
My point is, in fact, actually, if we don't send the probe doesn't come out, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So my main point here is because we're way off topic. Just because the red angel, because we had a red anomaly with a red angel and a time rift, and we sent in a probe that comes back and attacks us, does not mean that the angel is somehow responsible for the probe.
But it doesn't mean that it's not either.
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
But I just think they're jumping too much to an assumption that it is.
Okay.
To me, there's more evidence that the angel has done good so far.
Yes.
Than bad, just because of this probe.
Yes.
I'm not even convinced the red angel does good, but this is not the reason to change that opinion if you had it, in my opinion.
Okay. I see your point.
It's a long way to get nowhere. Like I said, if you were one of the people who thought that the red angel only does good, this episode shouldn't have changed that opinion of yours, in my opinion.
I agree.
Okay. That was long. So, anyway.
So let's move on to the next topic.
Yes. The next topic would be Michael's journey to find Spock and all that entails, which was a lot, actually. So, what did you think about the fact that Pike granted her permission to go back to Vulcan?
I didn't know I was supposed to have an opinion. I thought it was fine. It was personal leave. And I love when Tyler's like, well, where's Michael? It's personal. So I love that. Okay, so yeah,
that's more of the question is Pike's way of doing it. But, yeah, personal leave makes sense, I guess.
Because they weren't on an important mission. They were just hanging out to, investigate the readings and stuff like that. So it's not like they were on this major, and they were planning to stick around anyway. So yeah, go have some personal leave. She's obviously earned it. So go and do your thing.
Right. And this is what leads to the badge flipping incident, as I'll call it from now on.
Yes.
Which I liked. And then when she gets there, more importantly to that question actually is, he says if Spock knew, he'd tell us, and she mentions...
You mean Sarek?
That's what I meant, yes. He mentions that if Sarek knew anything, he would tell Starfleet. And Michael says that's not big. I'm paraphrasing, but that's not who I'm worried about. It's Amanda that knows something.
Right.
And she wouldn't. And it turns out she's very correct.
Mm-hmm. And I love when Michael talks to Amanda and it's like, you have always told me the truth. And now this is why I can tell that you are lying to me. I thought that was so telling of their relationship and that she's able to see right through Amanda.
Yeah, because it's the first time she's ever seen her lie, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know, because it's easy when, like, in other stories, a lot of times they'll just be like, well, I know when you're lying because I can see it every time you lie. But in this time, she's never seen her lie, which is why she knows she's lying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a nice touch there. It was interesting. I have never heard of Takmar before. That was what Sarek was meditation to bring lost souls home. Is that, have you heard or mentioned that, seen that before?
No, I don't know anything about it.
Nothing on Enterprise that I might have missed?
Not that I remember, and I don't think it was in TOS either.
So that's a cool new little meditation thing that Vulcans can do.
Yeah, it's also cool how they block it. That they put them around Katra stones.
Yes.
Which was pretty cool. And that blocks them their ability to use that way of finding them.
Yeah. So yeah, I like
cool.
the culture building of Vulcan that we get in this episode from that.
Yeah, we get a ton of it.
Yeah.
Actually. And we get a ton of it. We get a ton of that. And we actually get a bunch of character building from Amanda and Sarek, too.
Oh, my gosh. Okay. So what did you think of how Amanda was speaking to Sarek? Because it's been all over the place with what fans have thought.
Okay, so one thing is when she says, I'm not under your authority, I'm your wife, she's right, but I don't think that's what he meant. I didn't take that line to mean you're under my authority. The authority is actually his to give her to allow him to use, allow her to use Asylum. So, okay, you're not under my authority, but you still can't use my authority to save Spock.
Well, but under Federation law, she can because she's the wife.
If he doesn't object.
Right.
It's really his authority given to her to use.
Right.
Right. So under that statement, right, assuming that that's what he was talking about, which now I'm assuming, but that's what it sounded like to me, he's not giving her the authority to use it. Mm-hmm. So, like, when she's like, well, I'm not under your authority, I'm your wife. Okay, let's get a divorce. You don't have that power anymore. Like, you only have that because we're married.
Right.
You know, so that line, I mean, I understand what they were going for there, and I like that she stood up to him. It just didn't make sense in that conversation to me.
One other thing that sort of I didn't appreciate was they were talking about Spock, and then Amanda changes the subject to say, well, you never appreciated human nature because you would have never left Vulcan. And then I gave up everything to stay with you and to be mother of these children. And she flipped the conversation and what the topic was. And to me, I have issues with that because if you're going to have a debate, you need to stay on topic. And that's one of the things that annoys me a lot about couples and about people who get into fights is that they bring in all the past and all the baggage that they have instead of debating this one topic. And I think if she would have stayed on point, for me personally, that would have been stronger. But she just bring in all of their marriage into this one scene.
Yep. I agree, and it's frustrating, and it's exactly how everybody fights today about everything.
I know, and
as much as it's frustrating, I like it because it is. Look, Star Trek shines a mirror on us, and we can't go on Facebook right now and find every argument you can because everyone you know is having one with somebody, and nobody is staying on topic.
Yeah.
I say I like Star Trek, and you say, well, it's not Star Wars. Who cares?
Right.
I like Star Trek. Yeah, but it's not Marvel Universe. I get it, but I like Star Trek.
Yeah.
You know, so, and it's so it's very human nature to just try and say something that's going to win you an argument. Forget the reality of what you're arguing about anymore. Let's say something that'll get me back on top, that'll make me look good, and then I can hammer my point home at the end.
Right. Yeah. That's definitely a mirror, and you're right. Yeah.
So I understand why that would drive you crazy, but I think that's what it was intended to do. I don't think it was an accident.
But because of that, we do get, again, so much more knowledge about their relationship and their history that they've had together and sort of their family dynamics that really is enriching to the entire, Sarek, Amanda's family dynamics. Yeah,
absolutely. More character building, but as a couple. And just to make a point, too, when she says, you never really respected humanity, his answer was, well, I married a human. That doesn't really mean you respected humanity. Right. Like, I know people who have married other people, all right, other races. And they did that because they liked that person. But in the middle of an argument, they started dropping N-bombs on them. So they didn't respect, black people.
The culture, yeah.
Right. They happened to fall in love with this one person, and in their mind, they were the exception. So,
yeah, that's funny because I was going to say the same thing. It's like, well, I'm not racist because I have a black friend. You hear
exactly.
that. And it's like, wait a minute, there's more to more to that than just having one friend.
Right. Even more than just marrying someone. That doesn't necessarily change the fact that. Maybe, and we'll take it back to Star Trek. That doesn't mean you love humans,
right? Or understand human nature,
right? It just means you married a human, a human that has spent most of its life, if we take this argument at face value, to be more Vulcan than human.
Yeah,
because
go ahead.
In my opinion, if he really respected humanity, he would have tried to let Michael be raised more human than Vulcan,
right? Exactly. One thing that I really, truly loved about seeing from Amanda was her just immense guilt and frustration of seeing Spock being, raised at the academy where no one had sympathy for him and that he was half human and that no one would take care of him or help with his learning disability. Like, you could see that definitely weighed on her tremendously. And I appreciated seeing that. Even though I myself am not a mother, I definitely see it in a lot of parents of kids who I've taught. And it's a heavy burden feeling like you are responsible. I mean, and in part, responsible may be too harsh of a word, but I mean, he is part human because of her. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's even brought up later when Michael says that if he was fully human, this would have driven him insane already.
Fully Vulcan.
That's what I meant. Yes. Sorry. But yeah, it would have destroyed him by now. That, in fact, his human half is now protecting him.
Right.
Because his human half can somewhat process the emotions.
Exactly.
Which is kind of weird to me. I guess the reason is that it's not that a fully Vulcan couldn't process. It's just they react so strongly to emotions that it would have been over the top. So also, there's so much to talk about with this whole Michael, Sarek, Spock, and Amanda thing. But what do you think of them using The Looking Glass or Alice in Wonderland as the book that she read to them?
It's brilliant. Because going back to season 1, where she's crawling down the rabbit hole, through the thingy, I can't remember which episode. And now we're getting this again where we're seeing, okay, so Amanda used to read it to Spock. And then she reads it to Michael. And, you sort of see that because when we saw the flashback in Lethe and seeing Spock view Amanda and Michael reading it, I really felt like Spock was jealous. Like, this used to be my mother. She's doing now reading to you what she used to do for me. But it seems to take on a little different twist now that we have this backstory a little bit more. And I love, down is up, left is right. And that was sort of a hint to us, the viewers, that, this dyslexia, left is right. Let's read the numbers backwards. Like, it just was so intertwined seamlessly. I loved it.
So Star Trek has used Alice a few times, more than a few at this point, but it's been brought up in other series at times. And I really love Alice in Wonderland and all their stories. I mean, I own like 3 copies of the books, and it's one of my favorite stories. I've seen every version I can think of on TV and movies and whatnot. But so it's one of the stories that I really enjoy. But one of the reasons is because it's making something normal out of chaos. It's not necessarily, like Sarek says, you read him this chaos story, but it's not. It's not chaos to a child. That's the whole point. So for anyone who doesn't know, because there's a lot of rumors out there what this story was really about, and it was supposedly about acid trip, but acid didn't exist when this story was written, by the way. What it was the author saw his daughter playing and how she created all these weird characters and imaginary friends to play with. And he wrote a story about it. So to me, that's great because it shows you exactly what a childhood should be. It should be all these weird things going on and characters and different. I mean, the fear parts are a little much for a kid, I guess, but kids are afraid of things, and that story in itself, I could do a whole podcast on Alice in Wonderland alone, but that story itself really tackles a lot of those issues for someone, and to use that here as to what's going on in Spock's brain is ingenious, in my opinion, and for all the reasons you said. It gives you why he sees it backwards. Like I didn't notice that before. Like I didn't catch it until Michael said, "Oh, he's reading it backwards." But once she does, he's like, "Oh, man, that's just so obvious."
Yeah, it was really good. And Sarek just used it so accusatory towards Amanda. Like, you read him this chaos story and now he can't figure things out. And it's like, no, this is probably the thing, because then he, instead of quoting the first laws of logic or whatever, he started quoting Alice in Wonderland. And, that was helping to ground him, I think.
Me too. I think that's his tether back to sane thought.
Yeah.
I mean, insane thought is what's holding him to sane thought. It's kind of weird, but it is. And we see Michael do it for him later with the, we don't know if the well was too deep or if she fell really slowly, where she had lots of time to think of, and I can't remember the exact lines, but I got close.
Yeah.
And, so they both really memorized the story. And to go back to something you said, the way Amanda said it, it's like she stopped reading Spock the story because she was reading it to Michael, that Sarek made her stop. Because this is kind of a running theme that Sarek had forced Amanda to be less human around Spock.
Yes.
Less of the human emotions and whatnot. And
yeah, we got that previously when Amanda was like, well, you talking to Michael, you've seen me differently because I wasn't allowed to show my human emotions and love towards Spock. So you got all of it.
Right. And I mean, so I'm going to take her at her word because she could be wrong about that, but I'll take her at her word because I don't see any reason for the writers to lie about that. And we find out later that Sarek's some bleeding heart, but that's why it's a great scene. Like you said, it looks like Spock is jealous because he is, because that was his time with Mommy at one point, and now it's gone and it's never coming back. And we find that out, it never came back. I also think it's amazing that they they give him a learning disability.
Right.
Because we know what Spock becomes. We already know what he becomes, right? He's one of the smartest people to ever go through Starfleet. And he does great things. Yet he started out with a learning disability. And there's a lot of children who, I'll admit it flat out, I was in resource room until the end of junior high school, which was actually freshman year of high school for me because my junior high went through 9th grade.
Yeah.
And I had to go to resource room because I had trouble reading. I did pretty well for myself. I turned out all right, but not Spock all right. But, but a lot of people, when they're kids and they find that out, they're different from everyone else. And it's really hard to come to grips with that difference. And kids can be mean, too.
Yes.
So, but this story is now giving you someone that had difficulties and became a great success.
Yeah, and to not judge him on his difficulties or disabilities, especially when he was a youth. And it sort of comes full circle when we know, well, from Star Trek 09. I know it's a different timeline, but that, he's like, well, you were accepted into the academy despite your, failings. And it's like the Vulcans still try to think that he has this disability because he's half human. And again, sort of referencing this disability. And you're right. Spock goes off to Starfleet and is, incredibly intelligent and so influential. I love that. And as the teacher in me, that just really made my heart sing. And, a disability is just something to be aware of and to work through. And you don't cast this huge judgment. Well, this child, Spock can never amount to anything because he can't get his numbers or his letters in the correct order. That's ridiculous.
Right. Like what we're seeing here to me is like dyslexia, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, he's reading backwards or whatever. I'm sure it's something different, but let's just say dyslexia because that's a hard one. I mean, seeing letters backwards and whatnot. So, but we see that the Vulcans themselves are like children. I mean, in the treatment of Spock, they weren't going to help. Again, if we just take Amanda at her word, they weren't going to help him.
Yeah.
They would let him fail out, and I don't know what that looks like on Vulcan, but whatever that takes on, and he would have been a waste of a person in school at that point.
Yeah.
And I find it really interesting, even more so, because we kind of saw that with Michael a little bit because of her human brain wasn't fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
And then Sarek basically says, well, it wasn't your human tongue that was the problem. It was your emotions. But that was her disability at the time. Mm-hmm. But now we're getting like a legitimate learning disability out of a character. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And one that we know for a fact goes on to do great things. So, again, I just really like the fact that it tells you that anyone can make it and anyone can succeed at a very high level if they really want to.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
The most powerful part of all of this, even though we've talked about a lot now, was when Sarek tells Amanda he does need help. And Michael has to be the one to bring him to Section 31. And the logic dictates that Section 31 wants to fix him to get the information out of his head. Now, I agree with the logic, except that Section 31 isn't logical like Vulcans.
So I also had this question, and again, because I do postcards and stuff like that, this came up on postcards. So listeners, I do apologize the overlap on topic right here, but I think it is worth mentioning twice now. So at this time, Section 31 is under Starfleet. And with Spock being an officer within Starfleet in the Vulcan High Command and stuff like that, like he's trusting Starfleet as he should, as there's been no reason not to agree and trust Leland in Section 31 because it is a sanctioned organization of the Federation. So it's okay now that I have that understanding that Sarek would believe Leland because because it is Federation. But we obviously know that's not going to be the best.
Okay, so I agree. I actually agree that Sarek's thought process is correct. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't take into account that humans in general just aren't as logical. And so I understand why he does it. I don't know if I were in the same situation I would do it, but I also would assume that humans aren't as logical, and he obviously did not. And so
that's
okay. I can buy it. Yeah. I can buy it though. I can definitely buy it. It doesn't drive me crazy that he thought that, but I do love that. Really, what we're getting to here is that he says he finally shows emotion. And He says, I'm not prepared to lose 2 children in one day. Mm-hmm. And he's right, because that's what would happen. Because when he first started that speech, he goes on, well, you would be putting your career at jeopardy again. Oh, great. He cares about her career. Awesome. But then he says, and I'm not prepared to lose both my children. It's like, oh, well, that's way more important.
Yeah. Yeah, that was beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, because now he's showing emotion. Again, it's not that Vulcans don't have any. They control them, but even in controlling them, they do show them from time to time. Mm-hmm. And this is obviously a time where Sarek decides, no, I'm not ready. I've already lost one as of right now. And if I can't get him fixed, then I've lost him.
Right.
And I could possibly save both in one action.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
All right. I guess that takes us actually into, I was going to do this for topic 4, but I guess that takes us into when Michael gets him back to Section 31 and what happens with Georgiou.
So do you have issues with it?
Okay. So, all right. I have one nitpick on this whole thing, and it was brought up to me by Mark Rodriguez.
Our negative Nelly.
Okay, and my son though.
Oh.
So it wasn't just one person; it was two people, and I agree with I agreed with him with this one anyway. So nobody, or I shouldn't say I agree with him. This is part of my theory. Nobody came to stop Michael, really. Like, it's crazy to me. It's crazy to my son. It's crazy to Mark that this all happened in that fight scene. Now, all right, she turns him over, and then at some point, Georgiou comes to her, right, and says they're going to fry his brain. And so we'll get into this the slow way instead of me jumping right to the end. And she says, so you're doing this out of the goodness of your heart? And she goes, no, I'm doing it out of the goodness of yours. Because I know way more about you than you do. Which is an awesome scene because I actually believe it.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it to be true. Because I believe that Georgiou doesn't do anything without studying vast amounts of information. And I could be very confused about myself, but you could look back at my history and know more about me than I do.
Mm-hmm.
In the turmoil that Michael is currently going through.
But then I love that she says, you discrediting Leland and, stealing Spock not only is good for you, but it's good for me.
Well, of course. And yes, Georgiou's only going to do something if she somehow benefits from this, right? She's not going to do it just out of the kindness of her heart. She's just not. I do think there is some attachment there because of her attachment to the mirror universe, Michael, still. I still think that's an underlying cause of some of this, but not the overall cause. I think it is that she wants to make Leland look bad.
Mm-hmm.
And if she can help a friend, she's going to do that. And that's what this all comes down to. Now, as for the theory on why Georgiou doesn't get any help, it's because I think Georgiou's already turned the crew, or at least a vast amount of it.
Oh, you think some kind of mutiny?
Of course. I don't think she makes a play this strong if she doesn't. She's not stupid. She didn't become the emperor of the mirror universe by making stupid attacks.
Now that sort of fixes that problem.
Yeah, well, yes. Because when Mark said this to me, I was like, wow, that's right. No, that's not right. Because she wouldn't make a power play like this if she had nobody on her side.
Right. And unless she controlled everything.
Right. Now, on the flip side, because the answer I got back was, but then why does she, make a good show of it if she already had the crew? We don't know that those tapes of those don't go anywhere. I mean, so the higher-ups in Section 31 are probably going to see them, right? So she can't just be allowing this to happen.
Right.
So she makes a good show of it. She has most of the crew. Maybe not all of it, but she has a good portion of the crew. Enough to hold off people from actually stopping Michael. Michael does her thing and gets Spock out. To me, that fixes everything.
It really does, because I watched it on the second go round, and of course I have heard, and Mark messaged me as well, and so I was thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, that escape was really too easy. And Georgiou shoots her in the shoulder, and they give that cute little, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I love that look that Georgiou. Oops.
Yeah,
it was almost like a oops. I'm sorry, but
yeah. What are you gonna do? But she's able. So while she's getting Spock to the shuttle, you can hear on the overhead speakers the alert and that someone's leaving, whatever their alerts are. And so I'm like, okay, right. So the entire ship knows that there is a security breach going on. And yet we only see Georgiou is the only one who shoots at her. And she's able to go out of the force field, I'm like, under a security breach? Like, that would be total lockdown. Yeah, I'm like, where's but now that you said that Georgiou has, got people following her, and you're right, that the tapes, because Leland, he's pretty big, like he's captain. And so when he reports back and it's like, well, Georgiou didn't do anything to stop her, and so she's the one that should be in trouble. No, now there's evidence that she was the one who tried to stop her. And so that's going to go in her favor.
Right. I mean, someone has to explain the miraculous 1 minute of missing footage. And that would be Leland, right? Or the security officer.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody, and Georgiou, well, it wasn't me. I was getting punched in the face through it.
Yeah.
So, and do you think Georgiou is stupid enough to walk into the security office, turn off the cameras, and then go to Michael and find a fight? No. She had someone in the security office turn off the cameras.
Yeah.
So she has to have people on her side. Again, she's too smart. We've seen she's too smart to just lay it all out there like that without having some kind of backup plan in place. Plus, she says at the end, she goes, "You're not in control anymore."
Oh my gosh. It sent chills down my spine. And I'm not going to lie, it reminded me of Laurel when Laurel says, "I am mother." Just like
yes,
this coming into power and this huge power play. I loved it.
Not to mention, this is exactly why by the time we hit DS9, that this organization no longer exists in Starfleet. This is why Section 31 gets kicked out.
Well, what do you mean this is why?
She's going to take control. Georgiou is going to take control, and they're going to kick them out of Starfleet.
Right. So, but this incident isn't the one that kicks him out of Starfleet.
No, but this is the start.
This
is all part of the plan.
I will agree with you on that.
So, 2 weeks ago when I was with Brandon, I talked about Leland is going to keep just going over that line, right? I believed at the time that when we get the Section 31 show, it's going to be Leland just kind of stepping over the line too many times and getting Section 31 shut down, and then the leaders of Section 31 keeping it going without Starfleet. But no, Georgiou is going to take control and either get them kicked out or take them out.
Yeah. Agreed.
So
yeah, we're not going to see Leland much longer. It's my prediction.
Which is, I like him.
I know, I like him too.
So I was hoping that he was kind of the catalyst, but no, with Georgiou, I was hoping they were working together. But
she does not work with anyone.
Oh, she does if it benefits her. She's working with Michael.
She's using Michael.
Yeah,
let's be clear. She's not working with Michael. I had
hoped she'd use Leland because he has more clout, but now she says he's just a puppet, and I believe her.
Yeah,
So
the huge bomb that Leland is responsible for Michael's parents' death.
Yeah. So now I need to know why. Did he was it not Klingons? Was it he did something to bring the Klingons there? We need to know this answer.
I know. This is another question that just pops up. No answers, just another question.
We need to know. Because it might not have been Klingons now. Or it might have been he just caused them. He might be indirectly responsible.
Exactly.
But I want it to be directly responsible. It's a better story if it is, in my opinion.
Well, I think, with Section 31 being so, futuristic with their technology and trying to, control, especially how we know, they're so involved in government and politics. I can see that angle more than a direct involvement. So I'm hoping for indirect.
Fair enough. Maybe direct's maybe not the right word, but I don't want him to do something random that you couldn't see would bring the Klingons there.
Yeah, no, it'll be more direct, indirectly.
Correct. Okay, so that's really what I mean. I don't want him to be. I don't want to see him shooting Michael's parents later on.
Yeah, no.
But I want him to do something that he knew that it would lead the Klingons to.
Right.
Michael's parents.
Yeah.
Even though he wouldn't know Michael's parents at the time. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I just don't want it to be he did something and then a consequence, an unknown consequence was, they attacked that planet and Michael's parents died. That would bother me.
So it almost makes me wonder now, talking this through, who were Michael's parents?
Well, obviously that's going to become a big part of the story, right?
So are they going to be a bigwig or are they just casualties?
Right. Well, I think they're going to be somewhat important. It's got to be. Because otherwise, Georgiou probably wouldn't even know.
Yeah.
He probably wouldn't even have known. So, Worf, his parents died, and we kind of hear about them once or twice, and that's it. It's not... That part of the story, who his parents were, really wasn't that important to his story. Even though in his culture, it should be a massive amount of importance to that story.
Yeah.
Obviously they didn't tell stories the way they do now, which changes it too, but still, I think that they're going to be someone important. I hope they're someone important. It makes more sense that way.
Yeah, but now that you bring up worse parents, I'm like, yeah, they could just be, regular old people. So I'm going to be fine either way because I think it's going to be interesting. And it will be interesting to see if Michael, when she does learn about it, because, she will, if she takes the higher road or if she's going to, with the help of Georgiou, get revenge.
No, she's getting revenge.
She could take the higher road.
No, she's not going
we
to.
We are Starfleet. Don't you remember
that.
The last episode? Your favorite episode of season 1.
No.
Listeners, if you know, I'm totally being sarcastic with Patrick.
I know. But Georgiou is going to twist her. I don't think she's going to get the revenge early either. I think that's going to be something that kind of drags out. But I think eventually Georgiou is going to get her to do it. Because it helps Georgiou.
That's not very Starfleet. That's not very Utopia.
I'm okay with that.
Oh, goodness. Okay, so can we move on to the math?
Sure. Please? So you want to talk about Stamets and Tilly?
Yes. I have been waiting this whole time. You swept topic 4 on me with topic 3.
Well, they go together.
Yes, it flowed much better. But, we're running out of time. And the listeners need to hear me talk about how amazing all of this math was going on. And yes, Stamets and Tilly, they're just the new favorite. I love, love, love them together and how much trust that they have in each other, right?
Yes, absolutely. They are the best couple. I mean, I know they're not a couple, but they're the best couple on the ship right now. Yeah. And maybe it's that I've just come to grips with the fact that this quirkiness of Tilly is going to stay forever, but it didn't bother me that much in this episode.
Yeah, and I think it was episode 1 or episode 2 where it's like Tilly was just too funny and she's now funny, but yet still keeps her intelligence and her wits about her and her gumption to go through with everything.
Right. Plus the writing made sense this time for her to be nervous and funny because she's about to do something no one's ever done before.
Go ahead.
One of the things she's like so freaky, like when she's like, "Oh, it's so freaky." Well, you told me not to curse. Yeah, she's like, "You told me not to curse." All right, that one could have gone either way with me.
No, that was hilarious. And then did you see Saru's expression? It was like, she's got a point.
No, I know the reason why. I like the so freaking part that didn't bother me. It was like Saru's response kind of was weird. Well, she didn't curse, so what do you care that she said it? But
because it's not proper work language. Like when you're at an office, when I speak very professionally when I am, typing out emails to parents. Like I'm not using any slang and of course not curse words, Yeah, no,
I understand. Okay, so maybe it's just me because I'm okay with Pike being very lax. I think that would be perfectly okay on the bridge.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Okay, fair enough. But, so, whatever. But it was a cool line. I mean, whatever. It was a little nitpick there. But, like when she was freaking out later in the transporter room, she was that quirky, funny, because she's nervous. And it was written so well, it made sense. Mm-hmm. It made perfect sense to me. None of it was questionable. Mm-hmm. Like I said, the first part was a little questionable because I don't know. Plus, like you said, you're a teacher. I by trade, am a construction worker. Curses is not a big deal.
Right. I mean,
there's some job sites where you wouldn't do it because you're on an occupied floor or whatever. But definitely saying freaking would never be a problem on any job site I've ever been on. So, and I've said it in front of guys who own Fortune 500 companies.
That's
funny. So
I don't dare use any slang even in front of kids. Like I just don't want the issues.
And I'm not going to name companies, but some of them have dropped some F-bombs in my presence. So, and like I said, they own Fortune 500 companies in Manhattan. So, I guess freaking doesn't. Whatever.
Yeah.
It's not that big of a deal either way.
Right.
It was cool. It was a funny line. The look that Saru gave was great. It just kind of felt a little out of place for me.
No, I thought it was perfect. And you're right. Like for Pike to repeat it goes to your point that Pike is running a looser run ship.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is why the scene with Tyler is so much more powerful. Because he is running a loose ship, and then he still does snap on Tyler and tell him, I'm going to throw you in the brig. Like, this isn't even up for debate anymore. Mm-hmm. There's a time for us to be that way, and there's a time for us to be this way.
Yeah.
And I know the difference. And I love the fact that we keep seeing the difference. Off topic, because now we're talking about Tilly and Stamets. But, whatever. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. But, the math and the, trying to use time as the constant, which just blows my mind, and the mycelial network as the constant instead of the variable was just way awesome. I love it when we switch, and I do it sometimes with my kids when I'm teaching them, well, more in middle school than high school, but I switch the axes. So height is my constant and stuff like that. It's really fun. And it just warps your brain and makes it think even harder. And so then we're using, time and mycelial network as the constant when in reality, that really is the variable. Right. And so that whole switch to me just made my math brain so happy. And then when Stamets is and she's like, I can't do this. And he's like, yes, you can. I would only trust you and trust the math, but more importantly, trust yourself.
Trust yourself.
And I was
Greatest line.
Yep, best line ever.
So here's my one little nitpick about that scene.
Oh, don't even.
There is one, and when I say it, you'll see it too.
Okay.
He said, "You're going to send me on my mark." Basically, what he says is, he talks about how finding them would be like trying to catch a grain of sand in a hurricane with tweezers.
Right.
Awesome reference, by the way. He goes, so then they walk off. He runs off. He's like, except if you have my tardigrade DNA, right? So whatever. So they run off, and he goes, you're going to have to send me on my mark. This is obviously an extremely precise teleport, right?
Yes.
And then, so he makes a point to say on my mark, and then he's like, just trust yourself. She's like, okay, and turns it on. I didn't say mark yet.
Oh, that totally didn't even, no.
I didn't say, I noticed it the very first time. And so did my wife and my son.
Okay, so how I read that was that I've already got it into the computer. So use my mark, put a pin in it, that's the mark where I need to go. That's how I took it.
Oh, no. See, no.
So now does that fix it for you?
No, because when you say on my mark, it means, yes, he has the coordinates set, right?
Yeah, but that's his mark.
No, when a captain or someone says on my mark, they say mark, and then you hit the button. It's so precise that it wouldn't just go somewhere. Because he says in a minute they'll be out of triangulation range.
Yes, and I love that reference too.
So time is obviously a huge part of this. If it's that precise, you couldn't just turn it on whenever you felt like it. You'd have to be like, all right, ready, wait.
No.
Wait, now.
Okay, stop. What you just said, time is the constant. So before they leave that triangulation, the time is not variable. So it's not going to matter if time is the constant there. So when he says on my mark, that means here it is. That's where I need to go. So send me there.
Yeah,
Mic
okay.
drop.
I'll buy it, but I still don't believe it.
Mic drop.
No, because it just doesn't make sense. But that was my one problem with that.
But no, time's not a variable. You have to agree with me on that.
But it is a variable because within 1 minute, they're outside of the time range. Yes.
Patrick, they literally said that I
know what they said.
Okay.
They literally contradicted themselves 2 minutes later and said, in 1 minute, they will be out of the triangulation range.
Okay, listen. And then when he gets there, he's like, well, I'm not here. I'm 10 minutes in the past or whatever. That's because his mark in the coordinates based on the mycelium network, it doesn't matter the time.
Then he wouldn't have to do it within a minute.
That's because the mark was a location, not a time.
Okay.
Okay. I think I'm onto something here, listeners. You let me know if I'm right, because I love it when you agree with me.
They'll debate it. And I did like that when he got there, though, they gave us kind of like a little techno-babble without getting too deep into it and confusing the viewer. Because he's like, yeah, I'm here 10 minutes from now. Mm-hmm. Admittedly, very confusing. And then he just sits down and does his job.
Yeah.
So, because they could have tried to explain that out, and they probably would have just confused everybody, and it was just easier to put it off that way.
Now, I know you don't have it here on the outline, but I just wanted to sort of close with the probe and Airiam.
Okay, perfect, because that's where we were going.
Oh, okay. So one thing, again, remember how I said at the beginning with Michael's monologue, or captain's log, I should say, the mystery comes in threes, and then we see the 3 red dots in Airiam's eyes. And
Absolutely.
I'm like, that was just a total bookend for me, that there are these 3 red dots in her eyes. I loved it.
So all right, so before I give you my explanation, what do you think is happening with Airiam?
Well, something with the probe from 500 years in the future, because the probe was so aggressive, and I'm not going to take malicious intent. I'm just saying that the probe was aggressive in getting information. Like, that's its purpose. So it is infected Airiam and is going to transmit her data and all the data on Discovery back somehow, because that's its initial intent.
Okay, so I'm going to contradict myself like crazy right now. Contradict everything I said in the beginning of this podcast. Again, because I don't think they gave you enough information to know for a fact, but they're just kind of taking it for a fact. That's my argument in the beginning. Now, to the end, Airiam's the Red Angel.
You just can't say that. You have to tell me why.
So because this probe hacked Airiam, right? Hacked him with 3 red dots, whatever. We see it inside, and then that's when it transitions over to the Section 31 ship. But so if we as the viewer, which as a viewer I think you can do it, I just don't think you can do it as a writer. If we assume that the Red Angel did reprogram this or fix this probe and make it attack, I don't think it was attacking maliciously necessarily. I think it was just worrying about its mission, and its mission was to get all the information that the ship got out of from that sphere. I think it was looking for that. I think it was looking for all the information they have on the Red Angel, and I think that's what it was intentions were.
Right. And
I think that in its dying moments, it sent that information back to Airiam, right, to try and continue its mission. But in the long run, it's going to turn Airiam into the Red Angel.
Okay, I can see that. That seems logical.
And now we have a full, actual connected story here, if that were to take place that way. Because I don't think all the theories we've heard up to this point are true. I think it's going to be something other than, and now, unfortunately, this isn't a new race, because we're going to Talos 4 next, right? We find out through Spock that when they reverse the numbers, its coordinates to Talos 4, which, if you've watched Star Trek before, you know what that means. And
General Order 7.
Yeah, well, apparently I think we're ignoring that at the moment. But whatever, we'll find out next week. And but we know that means there's Telosians there. We also, if you saw the coming attraction, spoiler alert, they're there. And everyone had thought, oh, well, this is the Telosians. I think that's way too obvious. I think they're just going to be able to look at Spock's mind and tell you information about who the Red Angel is. And I think the Red Angel is Airiam.
Okay. We had a couple guesses last week on postcards about that, so it's going to be very interesting to see.
Yeah, I like it. I like the theory. I mean, look, whatever. There's been a lot of theories that have fallen apart a week later.
Yep.
As far as, week to week, that's as good of anyone I've heard so far. And me and Brandon were talking about it, so
yeah.
I didn't buy it when he first said it, and now I do.
Mm-hmm.
So I like the theory.
So can I just say, I guess for my final thoughts, this is a great episode. I don't think it's the best for me. I love all of the discussion that we've been able to have and the relationships and especially with the Vulcan culture that we're getting and the backstories. Like, it's all amazing. And I love how the writers are doing it. They definitely are able to just seamlessly go between stories, and they're still connected. We're still, with the Red Angel and Spock, it's all coming together very slowly, as we know, as current storytelling goes. I am, just as my final thought, it's been too long. I need to see my Klingons again. I need Mary Chieffo. I need L'Rell. And it doesn't look like we're going to get any Klingons anytime soon. And it makes me a little sad. But I am excited for where this is going.
Right. So my final thoughts is, like you said, it's not my favorite. Although I will give the caveat that it could be my favorite when the series is over. Again, a lot of these stories predicate on the next story being told, and so on and so forth. So, episodes that I think are great now may not turn out to be my favorite later on, and vice versa. But, because you're right, there's a ton of information here. And I'm glad that we didn't get a one-and-done story with a lot of these things, that they're going to continue on. Because if you remember, my biggest complaint about the Klingon episode, which I think we should have had more, is that it was only in one episode, and we got too many answers in one episode. We found out she had a baby, and the baby is gone in one episode. That's not how I like this storytelling to be. So for this to be dragging out slowly is great. I feel like they're finally really, really getting a hang of this kind of storytelling, and they're doing a really good job in these blocks of episodes. With that said, I would like to see the Klingons too. It's not a make or break for me like you. I think there should be some more sprinkled in, especially since we do have Tyler on the show still.
Yeah.
We should see what's going on with L'Rell.
Mm-hmm.
We just should. Some fans don't agree with that. Some fans do. I think we should, personally.
Yeah. Well, and we know that, Section 31 sort of has its hands, since it was responsible for L'Rell coming into power, like there's still that connection there as well. So.
Right. So we have to go back. And I think you're right, though. I don't think we're going to go back for a while, if at all, this season. Maybe season 3.
Shut your mouth.
But all right, I'll take that back. I don't want to get beat up over here. But I don't know when we'll go back. It doesn't seem like they're open. What's weird is they can literally plug it into any episode. So
I know.
Just plug it in, because we don't need it to connect to what's going on the Discovery.
Right.
So it didn't the last time, really. I mean, it did at the very end, but there were 2 disconnected stories that started.
They were.
So we could do that, and then you don't have to have it tie back to Discovery in order for it to make sense.
Mm-hmm.
So just do it.
Yeah.
But whatever. We'll see what happens.
Yep.
It's been fun talking about Light and Shadow today, but this isn't the only thing we've been discussing on the network, so here's a quick look at some of the other things you may have missed elsewhere on Trek.fm.
Previously on Trek.fm, Warp 5.
Well, and I feel like a side quest could be finding more spheres and gathering intelligence from each one. And each one has like a different way you have to get into them and a different thing you have to collect.
Right, or they're cloaked differently, or
each one is an individual.
Earl Grey.
Because like the DNA transformation, where's the DNA coming from that's being transformed?
It's like a replicator.
Yeah, and I think that again, the explanation that it's an advanced Genesis device kind of makes me buy it more.
Okay, yeah,
but it just felt a little weird. The DNA thing, it looks like some. Hey, can somebody just throw some leaves on the bridge? But I think it's a really cool concept. The snakes in the
torpedo.
The torpedo. At that moment, I thought this is the Halloween 3 of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
To the journey!
That's a really good point, Suzanne. We need to clarify, because when we're talking about Chakotay and Seven, some of the best romantic scenes are not actually with Chakotay, they're with hologram Chakotay.
Yes. I would like to meet hologram Chakotay. He seems nice.
You want to date with holographic Chakotay, okay.
If I had a holodeck, I'd be programming that in right now.
The Edge, a Star Trek Discovery podcast.
Saru finally realizes at some point he's seeing its language in ultraviolet light. Basically Morse code. I don't know why they don't say that wording.
Oh, you thought Morse code? Because I was thinking binary.
That makes sense too, but isn't binary kind of a version of Morse code? Because Morse code is a type of binary language. Because all it is beeps and not beeps.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like.
And that's what else is happening on Trek.fm.
Check out all of these shows and join the conversation about your favorite corner of the Star Trek universe and beyond. You will find us wherever you get your podcasts. If you're an Apple user, be sure to hit the subscribe button in Apple Podcasts on iPhone, iPad, or Apple TV, or the desktop iTunes app to get the latest episodes as soon as they are published. And please leave us a star rating and written review. Now, Patrick, we still have our iTunes giveaway going on. Listeners, if you're still listening, please leave us a star rating and written review. And we will have a drawing. We have amazing Captain Pike pin by fan sets donated to us by our AP, Chris Trabuzio. And we are going to have a giveaway. You have till the end of season 2. So it's coming up, April. Get that in and your name will be entered to win.
Yeah, they're great pins. I really want one myself, and unfortunately, I'm not
eligible.
Available. Yeah, no, I can't do it. But so I'll just have to buy one. But they are great. So get those reviews in, and you'll have a chance to get them. If you're not an Apple user, we've got you covered as well. You can find our shows on Google Play Music, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spreaker, SoundCloud, YouTube, Windows Phone, in most third-party apps, and you can stream and download the MP3 file from our website or grab the RSS link.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's show, and there are many ways for you to do that. The best place to join in the larger conversation is the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. Just type Babel, B-A-B-E-L, into the search field on Facebook, and it will come right up. If you'd like to send us an email, and we love getting your emails, you can use the form on our website at Trek.fm/contact. Choose to send to a show and select the Edge. That will come right to me, and then I'll give it to Patrick too. You can also find the network on Twitter at Trek.fm and on Facebook at facebook.com/TrekFM. So Patrick, where can people find you when you're not trying to make Leland look bad?
Oh, man, I'm always doing that. I'm doing that, but I'll tell you where I'm doing that. Because I'm doing that in the Babel Conference. I'm doing that on Twitter at Magic Drop 5. It's no spaces. The 5 is a digit. I also try and do that once in a while on Warp 5, even though that happened years and years earlier. I still, that timey-wimey thing.
It's that time rift, yep.
Yep, I can make him look bad all over. And you can also find me on March 9th and 10th this weekend at Big Apple Comic Con. So if you want to hang out and, say hello, that's where I'll be. Also, May 17th to 19th, I'll be at in Cincinnati, Ohio, at what's called the Grand Gathering. It's a big convention for a wrestling card game that I'm involved with. So I'll be there as well. And that's about it, right? Because I said Warp 5, right?
Yeah.
And I said everything else. Cool. So that covers all my bases for now.
Okay.
So, Amy, where can people reach you when you're not 500 years in the future setting up a tentacle monster matrix probe to send back at me to stop me from doing this podcast?
Ooh, that sounds amazing. I think I need to go do that. You can find me here on the network. I co-host Earl Grey, which talks about Next Generation with Richard and Justin. I'm also over on the Fandom Podcast Network, co-hosting Discoville, which is about Discovery, and the Orville, which I am just loving right now. The Orville is so good. I am on Twitter at Miss Amy Nelson, and I am also on the Babel Conference. And since you mentioned it, I will also mention in March 24th is a Sunday, I'm going to be at Paley Fest, LA, and the cast of Discovery is going to have a panel at 2 p.m., so I'm going to be there. So listeners, if anyone's out there in LA, I would love to say hi and meet you and hang out. That's where I will be.
If you'd like to help us keep all our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron on the network on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/TrekFM. That's patreon.com/TrekFM to get all the details. Perks include early access to episodes, exclusive content, producer credit, and more. Available through our special patrons website, Patron Zone. It requires a great deal of money to produce, host, and distribute these shows each month. We really appreciate any support you can give us and hope you'll join the team. Again, you'll find all the details at patreon.com/TrekFM.
We would like to thank our tentacles of the Future Probe, our associate producers. They are, and there's more than 8, Norman Lau, Tony Robinson, Thomas Puleo, Lisa Slack, Shoaib Mirza, Richard Rutledge, James Muldrow, Cornelia Reutner, Ryan Mallette, Chris Trabuzio, and Brian Maloche. Thank you for supporting and downloading and gathering all the information you can for us and supporting The Edge.
Thank you for listening, and join us next time to see what's happening on the edge of Federation space.